so this week's video, I am taking you along with me on my day downtown. So if you are not aware, I live in Maryland, right outside of DC. And so today I decided to go into the city to check out a couple of museums. If you guys don't know, I am currently just sort of chilling at home, waiting for my visa to all get worked out before I move to London. So I am just trying to pass the time a little bit in my home state before I make the big move to grad school. And this day I took the metro downtown with my dad and we got breakfast at this place called Tatte, which is it's really popular in DC. They have really great lattes and different breakfast items. Me and my dad both got lattes. We sat inside. I also got this really beautiful toast with avocado, smoked salmon, and I think it had some sort of like aioli thing on it. It was so good. And then my dad got one that had like prosciutto and like an egg and Parmesan. It looked really beautiful as well. He had to go to work, so I basically just hung out in this place for a little bit reading my book. I am currently reading The Paris Library. And so today, the first museum that I checked out was called Planet Word, and it's a fairly new museum in DC, and it basically talks about words, where they come from, language, the origins of it. And it was a really interesting museum, especially for someone, if you guys don't know, I studied English in college, so I'm pretty well versed in like the English realm. So I will say, like, a lot of this museum, I don't know if I really learned anything new, but if you are unfamiliar with language and the way that it influences our world and like how it's used creatively, I think this museum is so cool for that. They have this huge room that looks like a literal Harry Potter library, and you like pull off the books and they start talking to you. It's in this old school in DC that they turned into a museum, and I think there's about 3 floors. But you can learn about like how people use language in advertising, in comedy, in music, in literature. There were all these different screens and interactive word things that were so wild and cool to see. As a reader and writer and like creative person and someone who's taken marketing, like all of this stuff is so relevant, especially like in the art world and the creative world. So if that is anything that interests you, I definitely recommend checking out this museum. And my favorite part of the museum was definitely this machine that they had outside, which I know this is like actually pretty stupid, but this honestly was like my favorite part. But you click this button and then it prints a story or a poem onto a like little receipt for you, and it was so funny. It printed out one of my favorite stories that I used to read as a kid. They called it something else. They called it Old Witch, but I know it as Mother Hall, and it's this like really old story from my childhood that I used to like read in my like Catholic school library. And I loved it so much. Like I've used this story in like to write poems, to pull inspiration for like marketing projects and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend looking it up. It's one of my favorite like Brothers Grimm stories. And next I ended up going to the National Portrait Gallery, which I'm literally from DC, guys, and I get so confused still to this day of which is the Portrait Gallery and which is the National Gallery of Art. So there are 2 national galleries, and I accidentally went to the Portrait Gallery first. And like, just because I'm from DC, like I have not been to these museums in years. So I don't think I've been to the National Gallery probably since I was like a middle schooler, and now I'm a full grown like 23-year-old teenager. And so I decided to go to the Portrait Gallery, and I saw all of these like really famous like portraits that I can't believe that they're like in my home state. Yeah, that was just kind of wild to me that I had not made my way down there in such a long time. But then they also had new art. Like some of these really just spoke to me. And yeah, I had a really fun time. I also just love the architecture of these buildings, and something about like getting to wear a cute outfit, putting in your headphones, and just getting outside and enjoying art. It's just honestly one of my favorite things to do. I did this all the time in Edinburgh, and it's why I just had so much fun living around these things because it's what I love to do. So then in between the portrait gallery, I stopped at Greg's Coffee. I think it's called Greg's, yeah. And of course, I was eating a granola bar and listening to people talk about policy. Welcome to DC. I made my way over to the National Gallery of Art, and I hadn't been here in so many years, and I got a little bit lost in the museum for sure, and I forgot how much absolutely gorgeous art they have in this museum. And I hadn't been here since I was a kid, so they literally have so much like really famous art like Monet and Picasso and Van Gogh and like Renoir. It's truly incredible. But then they had all of this other art from like, US painters from Europe, from different countries. They split it off by sort of like the movements. Like they have a whole room dedicated to, not like rooms plural, dedicated to like Netherlandish art and Italian art, French art, English art. So it was just a really cool place to kind of wander around. And one thing that like I just really love about art museums, because I'm not really somebody who knows a ton about art, which may be kind of confusing because I'm literally in arts management. I have a degree in that, so I'm not a major anymore. I have my full degree. But art is not really like my medium. I really learned how to study language in college and like pick apart poems and understand those types of things, but not really art. It's not a medium that I'm super aware of. I was never super interested in it except when I became an adult. And I find it so cool to wander around art museums with different like music playing and just really letting the art letting myself feel it instead of trying to understand it. And I think that's what makes it really, really fun. And I think art can feel really inaccessible to people. Like it's a sort of like highbrow thing that if you don't understand it, you can't enjoy it. And I just think that's so not true, because I can really speak to someone who doesn't know that much, really. I took one art history class at the University of Edinburgh, and that was really it. But I just have so much fun listening to different music. And there's this video that I'll link below, but I love this channel called Philosophy Tube. And she does this whole episode on art and the experience of it. And I feel like that's something that we don't really talk about in America. It's sort of like, it feels like this very inaccessible experience that's not for people who don't know about it. But I just think that art is for everybody, and you can totally get something out of it just by wandering around and like thinking about how it makes you feel and letting it inspire you, however that may be. So if you're a creative person, I definitely recommend just trying out going to an art museum and seeing how it makes you feel. And I think that's a really great way to start. Yeah, this was my day out in DC, and I hope you guys like it. Subscribe because I post new videos every Friday. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.